Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite dark sorcerer here. And today, or I should say tonight's, well, technically it's early morning. It's 12:21 a.m., the devil's hour. And this morning I thought it would be a great time to discuss three aspects of the feared religion of necromancy. Okay? More so, even though it relates to conjuration of spirits, such as demons, demonolatry, angelology, spirits of reincarnated spirits, even. I thought it would be a good time to discuss this. Now, I tried doing a video earlier this morning, or I should say yesterday morning now, but I had a little issue with my computer, so I had to hold it off till now. So why don't we begin on the understanding of this? First off, what is socialism? Okay. What does sociology mean? First of all, it is the study of human nature, the human condition. What drives you, your motivations, your very personality, how you live your life. Sociology, socialism in general, is a complete study of all of these traits and more. Thanatology. Thanatology is the study of death and dying. This is basically anything from the terminally ill to the family, to dealing with the community and the fallout of the news and everything in between of that terminally ill person who is in the process of dying. Necrology. Necrology is the study and practice of the announcement, the record keeping, and the method of putting the word out that somebody has passed away. Okay? Now, how does this relate to your practice? Well, let me break it down for you. A lot of people that get into any given art, craft, or tradition, they see it as a way of life. So they really don't push themselves to get into something on a more spiritual or divine nature. They tend to just go with the flock, as they say. But those few who feel the calling towards the priesthood, the ministry aspect, when dealing with their coven, dealing with their community, those of you who live in a heavily dense Christianized culture, you probably notice a huge amount of fear, a huge amount of mistrust, maybe a lot of judging as well. You're going to hell because you have a pentagram on, either verted or inverted. You may even be considered a second class citizen because you're a pagan or a Wiccan, a more white light practicing tradition. But what are those of you that practice the dark arts, the black arts? How can you survive in a nature, in a culture like this? Well, first of all, if you're called to be a teacher, a spiritual guide, taking on apprentices, performing ministry and rituals for hire, one of the best things that you can do is to understand the need in the belief structure of the culture that you're living in, the very community. Okay? First of all, knowing the human animal through socialism, this is a great way to understand their fears, their misunderstandings, to literally walk in the proverbial shoes of your arch enemy, your rivals. Okay? More so, it kind of gives you that idea, that grasp of where they're coming from. You see, a lot of people think it's about popularity, it's about numbers, when in fact, it's more about spiritualism. It's more about the tradition that you practice and what it means to you from a philosophical or spiritual religious foundation. The two base things when it comes to the JCI, the Judo Christian institutions, is this. First of all, it's about serving a God, trying to live that right way. A lot of times you'll see it from the Ten Commandments perspective until you get deeper into that culture, and you're going to see that it's more about subdivisions within a subdivision. Okay? It's not just Baptist versus Pentecostal or Catholic versus Jehovah Witness. No, these factions are always going to be at odds with each other. I'm talking about in a single church, you have the elders, you have the youth, you have the elderly, the little old ladies that like to gossip, and then you have those those little how should I say this? The religious zealots. That's the key phrase right there. Religious zealots, the believers, the ones that you see constantly down at the altar, praying, worshiping, hollering out, laying hands on other people, crying, showing emotion. Okay? These are the types that are always out on the street doing the van ministry, promoting their foundation, setting the stage for the next generation of brainwashed fools. But don't get me wrong, it's not just the JCI. You also got misrepresentation in subdivisions within Satanism, Wicca, paganism, even. You look at any given coven, temple, order, foundation, you're going to see their version of the Satanic Creed. You know, the nine satanic statements or the seven sins of the earth. You know, the nine sins of the earth, the 11 satanic rules of the earth, and such. Okay, you're going to see their own version, no matter if you're going from an atheistic perspective, like the COS, maybe a cult perspective, like the TST, or maybe well, let's just say, call them the Hitler wannabes, the ones that are said to want research and delve into all the Hitler activities from World War II, okay, like the JOS. But a lot of people don't realize that they also study a lot of other things, such as Kundalini, chakra, psionics, and many other traditions of spiritual awakenings. Yes, their High Priestess Maxine does bring up a lot of things on sexual intercourse with demons and all this other propaganda. But people tend to believe in one thing when it comes to an organization. They don't look at it as a whole in what they believe. They just take it as hearsay. So they'll go with this or that, just like the JCI. Do as I say, not as I do. If you're into Wiccan and paganism, and you're a member of their covens, you do as I tell you to do. But if you seek outside, you will be dubbed a warlock. You will be dubbed an enemy of the state, and you shall be shunned. Sound familiar? This is socialism for you. This is how they gain perspective of the human animal. They have mastered this art. These other traditions have simply picked up on certain things, certain aspects of that aspect of the JCI that they have done for hundreds of years. You go to a hospital and you're going to see nuns in some aspects. You're going to see a chaplain, a Christian bishop acting as a chaplain. And they'll tell you, you cannot, even though you are an ordained minister, you cannot perform your ministry at that hospital unless you had such and such amount of time on street ministry or this type of ministry. Nothing but excuses. And yet, in the same sentence, we're in desperate need of ministers. Sociology. It's the mind game effect. That he's the only way, but yet you can't do it on your own type mentality. But when you get into things like thanatology, then you really begin to understand the art of dying, what it means to be a priest or a priestess within any given tradition, no matter if it's voodoo, shamanism, necromancy, Satanism, Christianity. They all have priests and priestesses. And it's ironic because here you are literally studying the art of dying. You look at all the things that Christians do, and it's not just them. Necromancers are known for doing this. The Black Fast, the Daniel's Fast. You're becoming closer to death, so that veil is becoming thinner so you can commune with spiritists. That's right, the spirits. Again, no matter if it's the jinn, the loa, the demons, the angelics, it doesn't matter. You're trying to get into a perfect harmonization with them through certain times of the year that are considered most holy. But it's more than that. What are you willing to give up for these spirits? But you're not just doing things spiritually. No, you're also in the world dealing with the family of the sick, the dying. You're dealing with the community who are shocked and stunned by the surprise eruption. I'm dying. My life is coming to an end. I've lived 97 years. It's my time. Or somebody who's suffered a heart attack, maybe kidney failure. Whatever it is, you're there for that individual. You go in, you listen to them. They refer to it as last rites, the workings of confession. Okay, this is the Catholic perspective of this. Now, it said it doesn't matter how much sinful life you've made. At the very end, as long as you repent, you're going to go to the kingdom of God. That's bullshit. You see, it's a reason why every tradition talks about karma, the law of three, the threefold law, Murphy's law, keeping things balanced. Even Constantinos, in his book Nocturnal Witchcraft, wrote about a tool that was used to identify the balance factor, good versus evil, light versus day, or I should say, day versus night, the four soul types. You go into Islam, you're going to see the four pillars. Go into witchcraft, and you're going to see the witch's pyramid. Hmm. Ironic how that just keeps popping up. The Tibetan Book of the Dead studies the journey of the soul as it goes from the living to the afterlife, the final expulsion of energy, that current. The Egyptian Book of the Dead shows you the process of dying, the process of death itself, how they believed in what they were doing from what we would call autopsy effect. And it's ironic how they made that little slit and removed four major organs. The number four, yet again. How they pierced the brain and pulled it out through the nostrils because it wasn't one of those organs. How they would wash and mummify the body. How they performed the sacred rites, just like the Aztecs did, just like the Druids of ancient Gaelic traditions. It is amazing to see how everything from the community to the family grieving over somebody important in their lives, in their community. Again, thanatology and socialism come into play here. But more so, you understand their fears, their realizations, their regrets. This is things that, as spiritualists, ministers, clergy, we listen to in a form of counseling. Christopher Penziak, in his book, The Temple of Shamanic Witchcraft, broke it down like this. A minister's duty is not just to marry people, hand fasting. You are also playing offices, parts, from being a counselor, a healer, a spiritualist as well. He listed off several different things and went into great detail into them. See, I really like that about Christopher Penziak's books. He knew he may be a shaman and refer to himself as a male witch. But there's no denying that he knows what he's talking about. Very insightful. But as you go into the art of dying and you begin following that journey, it's like reading a book, a mystery book, like, say, the Hardy Boys. Those of you from Generation X knows exactly what I'm talking about. The Matchbox Car Kids, or, the Hardy Boys, Scooby-Doo even, and Mystery Gang, Machine Gang, Velma, Scooby and Shaggy, and all of them. Just unraveling that mystery as you're going along that journey from life to death. And then you get into necrology. Do you know what it takes to announce to the public that a person has died? I mean, how would you go about writing something like that? I mean, think about it for just a second. As a practitioner of necromancy, as a practitioner of any religious faction. How would you go about doing that? Would you recite the Angelus prayer, 11th century prayer? Would you pray for that individual to go with the gods of their pantheon, the one that they worship the most? Would you be like the Shem priests of Giza, following the Egyptian Book of the Dead and the burial process, the prep and the rituals and the rites for immortality? Would you counsel everybody that was dying? Understand who that he or she was related to, who they lived by, or who provided for them in their last days. You see, that's necrology for you. Necrology is a recording of all of this stuff: the date of birth, the day they died, where the funeral is going to take place, but more so, who took care of them. All of this stuff plays into a record keeping. Everything, the Catholic Church was renowned for this. They started this, and then it moved out into the public. Now you have to go through the coroner's office. You have to call for ambulances and all this other stuff that costs the family money, and a lot of times puts families in debt. It's not like the old days. No, now it's all about money. And the life insurance that you get, well, let's face it, all these protections that you pay for throughout your life, you're lucky if you see maybe $100, 100,000 of it. And even then, it pays off just a small little portion. So the education of understanding all of this process, where to go, what tools to use, how do you commune with spirits from a necromantic perspective? I mean, you consider a lot of old grimoires speak of this, from utilizing oleums to brews to herbs. Hell, even Eliphas Levi himself spoke of rejuvenation of a corpse. This is where you literally guide a spirit to a corpse or to their corpse and bring them back for divination purposes, or even conjuration to find answers. In Haiti, you have the Bokor, who brings forth zombies, the zombie powder. European, you have the fact that they would literally drag a horse or a cat over graves, and if they would not, they were coming back as the vampire. So knowing the superstitions, the old wives' tales, the folklore of the traditions that you practice, not just socialism, not just thanatology, necrology even. There is so much that goes into this that I'm not even touching on. That you got to understand. I know from my own experiences, death has been a part of my life since I was young. I've lost a lot of people that were close to me. The last one was roughly about 10 years ago, about 10, 11 years ago. Died of cancer. I literally left after that for a while because a lot of times you don't understand Thanatology. It wasn't until recently that I got into necrology, that I got into thanatology, due to the path that I'm currently walking as a necromancer and a spiritualist, as an ordained minister. I've been an ordained minister now for 10 years. 10 years. That's a long time. That's a decade. I've been a practitioner for over 30 years, just about 31 years. You imagine all the knowledge, all the books, and all the time and effort it takes to gain those insights. A lot of people don't. And they don't teach this stuff in schools. They don't teach this stuff when you go to apply for certain aids, like life insurance policies or protection policies and all that other stuff. No, like I said, there's a lot that's involved that you've got to delve into. So when I tell you that these are the three main bulletins as a practitioner of the arts, the left-hand path, as a ordained minister, things that I've listened to, if I've told you half the stories that I've heard, half the things I've heard, you'd be horrified. You'd probably break down in tears because you could not believe that somebody would have that going through their minds. But the Hippocratic Oath literally is to keep silent, to remain silent. Welcome to the ministry. Welcome to necrology. Welcome to thanatology. Welcome to necromancy. This path is not for the weak of heart. It's not for playtime. It is not for fun and games. The left-hand path can lead you to great things, or it can leave you in ruins. I certainly have had my ups and downs. And I can tell you this, when you delve wholeheartedly into the system of magic that you're following, and you start going into all the traditions, when you look at things like, say, shadowmancy, divination, spiritualism, the powders and what they can do. How do you create the powders? How do you create yourself as an ordained minister? What are the legal laws surrounding things? What do you have to study? Who do you have to sign with? By signing with, I'm not talking school wise. No, I'm talking district and borough wise, statewide, because some states require you to be signed up as an ordained minister. Other boroughs, well, you're ordained. You don't have to sign anything. You don't have to notify us or anything. Just set up shop and do your thing. But how would you know that if somebody like me didn't tell you, didn't lead you to these conclusions? See, that's why you need to understand in a serious manner of what these things are and what they cover. And like I said, this is just a small portion covering three topics: thanatology, sociology, and most importantly, necrology. Do you want to know more? Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and begin your journey.